Welcome inside episode 637 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. And for the first time this season, I will have boots on the ground in Winnipeg.
And Ross, you're going to get to see a lot of prospects as many of the NHL roster guys did not make the journey to Winnipeg.
There is a minimum veteran requirement, though. They hit that. We'll tell you who's going to be in the lineup and why some players might not be. All that coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Tuesday, September 27th. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to like every video by simply clicking the thumbs up and subscribing to the Locked On Senators channel. It's going to be crucial that you watch Thursday's episode because we've got the best hair in broadcasting, as said by Charles Barkley on the show. Kyle Bukauskas will join us. We got our Sens Central Citizen tomorrow, but today it's an Ottawa Senators game day, Pilsy. The first game day that we've been recording because, of course, their first pair of games were both on a Saturday.
Yep, we're very excited about that. And Ross, you just had your haircut. I just had my haircut. We're trying to look as good or close to as good as Kyle Bukauskas. So we're doing our part here.
No question. I thought you were going to say we're inching closer to the team going for cuts, as we know that the roster will split into an AHL group that will work with Troy Mann and an NHL group later in the week. I think Friday would be best for us to guess which bubble players will stay in the NHL group. I'd imagine they keep that at about 30 players before they get down to their 23-man roster. There's a 24-man roster set for Winnipeg tonight. Pilsy, you teed it off the top. Not a whole lot of vets in the lineup. However, the guy who scored the game-winning goal last year in this game will be the number one center.
You love to see it. It's Shane Pinto. And hey, he already showed he's looking fine and healthy and no problem playing over 20 minutes in the last game. So he's going to get a chunk full of minutes once again here in tonight's game. And Ross, we were hoping we'd get the full Nodak trio to Winnipeg. We were told such by a source very close to the team. And Ross Levitan, are you cursed to not be able to see Jake Sanderson live? Because you've had many chances now, and each time miraculously Jake's not there.
Yes, I will hold off with the C word until the home opener. He better be in the lineup against Boston. That's the real test.
Yeah, I think he will be.
All right, let's hope so. Because, yeah, it's been a while. For those who don't know, last winter, I made the trip down to North Dakota. It's not so far. It's like 2 hours. But that to say, I get there. I'm settling in. I'm telling my girlfriend, making her watch like US and TDP highlights of Jake Sanderson. Look at this breakout, babe. It's sick. And then I get a text from Brad Schlossman, our friend with the Grand Forks Herald. He goes, no Jake Sanderson. He's sick. Not going to play this weekend. Sick as a dog, not COVID. But, I'll still had a blast those games. We are getting down to a game this year, Pilsy, whether you like it or not. Potentially the final year of the Nodak Sens.
Yeah.
Hopefully they reload.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't fully believe that. Like it's crazy that the Ottawa Senators went a draft without drafting any Nodak players.
Two drafts now.
I guess 2 drafts. Yeah. Wow. They just loaded up in the previous years, so they had enough to last them. But
even Tyconic is still there.
Yeah, Tyconic.
So 2 in 2018, 1 in 2019, 2 in 2020.
Yeah.
And then there's a drought. The pipeline needs a reload. But we will see Shane Pinto and Jacob Bernard Docker in the lineup likely. I mean, there is 2 scratches on the back end. They listed 8 defensemen, so they're really making us guess. We'll show you the lineup in just a moment and get into that. But are you surprised that Jake Sanderson isn't playing in this game?
I am surprised. Yeah, like we mentioned, Pierre Dorion told us that the plan was to have all the Nodak Sens playing in Winnipeg, close to North Dakota. So having him not play here is surprising, especially because this would be the perfect time for Shane Pinto to get a big workload and kind of get
He will.
Yeah, which he will, kind of get his experience playing, obviously not up against classic NHL talent, but in an NHL setting. So why not get Jake Sanderson doing the same? So I don't want to read too much into it, Ross. I'm not going to get out the
magnifying glass.
Yeah, the magnifying glass
the
and start
hat.
looking at clues and fingerprints and stuff like that. But there's got to be some reason why he didn't come along. Maybe they just want to give him a break because Sanderson hasn't played a lot of hockey, and then now playing over 20 minutes. That's a big deal for him, for a guy coming off injury and hasn't played full games in quite a while. So maybe that's the case, but not going to hit the panic button or worry about anything here. I'm sure it's all fine.
Yeah, especially because his partner is Travis Hamonic, a Manitoba native. I was like, oh, come on, DJ.
Yeah,
you got to get that done.
Yeah.
Come on. We should get to the lineup. And I think that there are a few very intriguing battles here because it almost feels like there's 6 guys for 2 spots on the back end. And I'm including like Brandstrom, Thompson, Jacob Bernard-Docker, and Nikita Zaitsev, who Pierre Dorian in an article today said is in the best shape of his life. Put one in the penny jar for that one.
Well, also CC Arizona Coyotes. Make sure they caught on to that quote.
Yeah. Make sure they listen to that one as well. All that to say, there's a lot of those guys I mentioned are going to be in the lineup. For the people watching on YouTube, I'll pull up the roster right now and we'll go through it. Pretty much when Belleville comes to Winnipeg in mid-December, this is going to look more like the team that comes here with them than it does with Ottawa on the 20th. You want to run through those forwards, and then I'll take over for the D and goalies, and then after the quick break, we'll go through what we're looking forward to most when it comes to this lineup.
Yeah, and Ross, you made a projected lineups screen, so maybe after the break we'll pull that up too. That's definitely the way to do that. But here we are, the 3 goaltenders, basically going to be the Belleville guys, right? You got Mando, Mad Sogard, and Antoine Bibeau. You got to say it like that every time. It's just a fun way to say Antoine Bibeau. Yep. Then on defense, JBD, one of the Nodak Sens playing here, Eric Brandstrom, Dylan Hetherington, Jacob Larson, Maxence Skinette, Ben Roger, Xavier Bernard, and Lassie Thompson. And then forwards, I feel like I'm doing roll call as a substitute teacher here, waiting for people to say present. Jace Harlick, here. Tyler Mott, Matthew Joseph,
Salut,
Dylan Gambrell,
hi,
Parker Kelly, Mark Kastelik, Cole Reinhardt, Tyler Boucher, Shane Pinto, Derek Brassard, Michael Dalcole, Igor Sokolov, and Philippe Daouz.
I hope Dow gets into a game after being listed in both games against Toronto and getting into neither.
Yeah, what a tease.
So we'll see. I will say before we get to the break, the one guy who I don't expect to see in the game is Parker Kelly. As DJ Smith told us the other day, he suffered a minor injury, nothing serious. I'm sure if this was the playoffs, he would be battling it out and making sure that he was in the lineup. But it sounds like they're targeting Saturday for his first preseason game. So maybe he's just an extra name. Not sure why. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think as we know right now, it's 5 p.m. the night before. So we're recording on Monday night. I'm working the old 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. shift, ironically hosting Jets at noon. So we'll get a little Sens talk as we're going to take over those airwaves. So definitely tune in if you don't want to hear me try to talk out of both sides of my mouth. You can do that. But here on Locked On Senators, we're going to pay a quick visit to one of our favorite sponsors, and then I will pull up my line chart. I want you to argue with me, Pilsy, over the placement of some of these guys, and we'll get into the battles. The fourth line center job, there's 3, maybe even 4 guys in this game who are competing for that fourth line center position, and then I have a very important question to ask all the listeners. But first, Pilsy, you got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Absolutely one of our favorite sponsors, Ross. It's the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. You guys already know it's betonline.net. All the latest odds, totals, player performance, props, and more. BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. It's the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just hockey, guys. basketball, baseball, golf, UFC, boxing. They got it all. Football, can't forget that. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. You got to check it out. It's betonline.net, where the game starts.
All right, Pillsy, the game starts tonight. The Ottawa Senators visit the Winnipeg Jets, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. And you can follow along on Twitter at Sens Central for all the latest news, updates. I'll have boots on the ground. If you're in Winnipeg, I know Chris Stammers is around, Nick Anderson. Let's see you at the game, fellas. Would love to have a beer with each of you, so hit us up in the DMs on Twitter at Sens Central. And my girlfriend always said, I'm not wearing a Sens jersey to a Jets game. That's fair. I'd never wear a Jets jersey to a Sens game. Mm-hmm. However, now she's not my girlfriend. She's my fiance, and she has agreed to rock the Heritage O jersey to the game. That's big. So my question to you before we get into the lineup, do I also rock a captain jersey, the same Daniel Alfredson, the white with the C? She's rocking a Carlson with the C, the Heritage O.
Okay.
Or do I pull out the North Dakota Shane Pinto jersey?
I think I love the double captains idea. And first off, congrats to Ross and Rachel. No, not the duo from Friends. Ross and Rachel on the engagement. Definitely big news there. And hey, getting a Winnipeg girl to wear a non-Winnipeg jersey to a Winnipeg game.
Credit to me.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal right there. So let's just let that sink in. I love the double captain idea, Ross, but this is the perfect time to wear the Shane Pinto Nodak jersey. Like, you're close to Nodak. It's not a regular season game, so there's not as much skin in the game here. And Shane Pinto is going to be the number one center. Like, I think it's a no-brainer. You got to wear the Pinto Nodak jersey.
Let us know in the comments. I want to hear what people think. I will go with the popular vote. I'm going to be a shell for whoever. What do they say? I'll be a star for whoever has the most weight behind it. But I like the thought process. And then if they're like, who is that guy? Never heard of him. It's like, well, he's played one game in this building and he scored the OT game winner. So buy me a beer. Thank you very much. All right. So Shane Pinto is the number one center. We think he's going to play upwards of 22 minutes. First power play, first penalty kill, and show everyone why you're not trading him for Jacob Chychrun as a part of a package. But let's see how we've got the rest of this lineup shaking out. We've got Shane Pinto in between Tyler Mott and Mathieu Joseph. So basically, the third line is the first line, and they may have a tough test, which I want them to have. I want Winnipeg to play their good players. I believe, and Winnipeg has not unveiled their roster, and this is not insider information. I'm just going off of what Winnipeg used for their first preseason game in Edmonton, where they didn't even dress one of their top two lines. They dressed two players of it, but Blake Wheeler sat out. I think we're going to get to see Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Nikolai Ehlers all as a line. That's going to be a good test for Pinto, Mott, and Joseph, who we hope can be a solid not penalty kill, but that too for all three of them individually. But a checking line. Yeah. Perfect. As guys who can step up and get things done against solid opponents. So Pinto, Mott, Joseph, and then there's some guys who I think might get a few shifts up there as well. Jace Howerluck, notably. I think he might play a few shifts up there. But right now he lines up, in our eyes, with Mark Kastelik at center and Tyler Boucher. Those two, heavy hockey. Expect that. Third line, Dylan Gambrell between Michael Dal-Cole and Igor Sokolov. And the fourth line, Philip Dao between Cole Reinhardt and Derek Brassard. I moved Brassard over to the wing because I think that they want to see how flexible he is. If he can be utilized in different roles in different situations. So he obviously can kind of bounce in and out from the center position if need be. On defense, we've got Brandstrom and Bernard Docker. They've been practicing together the last few days. Same can be said for Dylan Hetherington and Lassie Thompson. I think those four are pretty well set. I believe Jacob Larson will play, and I'm assuming it's Max Gannett. I think he's earned it after the first game he played, that unreal pass to Timmy Stu for his goal. I think he deserves another look, but what are you going to do with Ben Roger? Is this going to be a situation like we saw with Thomas Hamara, where he was scratched for the lone game he was listed for and then sent down the next day? Maybe, but he gets a free trip to Winnipeg out of it. So good on you, Ben Roger, as he and Xavier Bernard, I think, are on the outside looking in for tonight's game, I should say. And then Parker Kelly, like I said, I'd love to see him out there. Buzzsaw. Imagine a line of Kastelik, Kelly, and Boucher out there. I would love it. I just don't know if Kelly is healthy enough to play in a preseason type action. What would you say the look is of this line? Of course, we have no clue about the goaltending situation. If it's the same as Toronto, expect a split game, but I hope they just go with one guy. Just pick one and go with it. Mads had that unreal game
That's
here
what I was going to say
against Manitoba in the
But
first
on the flip
one.
side, he also had not so great a game after that. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I would go with Sogi. That's what I would do. Ross, to debate some of your lineups here, I do buy into the fact maybe they get Brassard on the wing just to see how flexible he is. And like you mentioned, like with the fourth line, you can kind of have a couple different looks. You can have that heavy fourth line where it's Kelly, Casti, and Watson, and they're just going to be out there banging bodies, playing tough defensive hockey. Or maybe you switch it up and you get like a Brassard, maybe Tyler Mott bumps down there, maybe one of the guys from Belleville comes up, and you try to make it a little bit more offensive. So there's different looks you can have here. The only thing I would kind of say is I think they're going to want to see more of Dalcol and Brassard rather than Howerluck and Gambrell. So maybe bump those guys up because let's be honest, you know what you got from Gambrell. He's been around. You know what he is. That's fine. And this is Howerluck's second trip in Ottawa. You also know what you have from him. So I think they're probably going to put a little bit more pressure on Brassard and Dalcol, but other than that, yeah, I think this is definitely a good look of how things are going to line up here. Like Ross, if you want that heavy line, why not swap Dalcol and Howerluck and have Dalcol, Casti, and Boucher?
Yeah.
That's a big boy hockey line to play up against.
Well, it looks like the Sens are going with 1 third line and 3 fourth lines. It kind of feels like the 2018-2019 season all over again.
Yeah, no kidding. But Ross, the nice difference here is the big battle we're talking about is who's going to be that fourth line center. So those days of having 3 third lines are clearly long over, as the top 6, better than a C+ top 6, just to put that in there also, is much better than in days past. And really the only places where there's any contention on this roster is basically the final position available at the fourth line center.
So that battle for fourth line center includes Mark Kastelik, Dylan Gambrell, and Derek Brassard. All 3 of them will be in the lineup tonight. I'll have my eyes closely on that, as well as how Jacob Bernard-Docker can handle top pair minutes. I think that in a perfect world, he becomes that low event partner for Thomas Chabot. But to do that, you have to play minutes with him as well. So that's something that I'm going to be really focused on. How about you? What's one thing that you're really hoping to see with this roster or an individual on it?
Well, I think obviously having JBD playing with Thomas Chabot would be the best practice for him to learn how to play with Thomas Chabot. But the next guy, probably the best example, would be Eric Branstrom, right? Left shot defenseman who has NHL experience. He's going to be the guy moving the puck up and down the ice. Brandy moves pucks, we know that. So if you're going to give JBD kind of a test trial to see, hey, how can you mesh with a guy that's gonna be more on the left side and more offensive? I think Eric Brandstrom's the most ideal guy, because Jake Sanderson, although he's very similar to Chabot as well, he's got a little bit more defensive edge to his game than Chabot or Brandstrom would. So I like that first pair. And once again, I'll repeat it. We need to see what Brandon can do. So anytime he's in a game, I want to, and especially preseason games, that's what this is for, give him the top power play time. There's some Sens truthers out there on Twitter that truly believe Brandstrom's stats kind of shine better on the top power play than Thomas Chabot's did, even though the simple stats, goals and assists and power play points, they didn't exactly pop for Brandstrom when he was on the top power play unit. So that remains to be seen in my eyes. But definitely JBD and Brandy should be the top pair, getting, I would say, over 23 minutes. Like they should both be right around 25 minutes, hopefully.
I hope so. We're also going to see Lassie Thompson again. He quietly had an assist in his first preseason action, playing just a shade under 16 minutes as well. 3 hits for him. As if Thomas Chabot had 5 hits in the first game. So did Jacob Bernard-Docker. So excited to see him. And I think that that's a perfect top pair in Belleville if that's how the season starts out. Hetherington and Lassie Thompson. But maybe Lassie bangs on the door. Hey, coming up after the break, I'm going to ask you if you're surprised about a guy who's not on this roster. That's coming up right after a quick word from one of our favorite sponsors. All right, Pilsy, it's a game day. We will have our locked on player to watch. I'm going to ask you that question I just brought up before the break of someone who I'm a little surprised isn't in the lineup. But first, we've got stick taps to hand out. Levi Marilainen has won his first Liga game.
Yes, yep.
His first Liga win. He stopped 16 out of 17 shots, and it's better than the alternative. So good on him for getting the win in his first start.
Yeah, definitely sick taps to Levi Marilainen, especially Ross. We had this discussion when he went back to Liga, and it seemingly looked like at the start of things that he was going to be the clear backup here. And we're like, well, maybe he should have stayed in Kingston because he would have got guaranteed number one starter minutes. But then he started looking Liga versus OHL competition. You have that whole debate. So if he is going to be in Liga, I want him playing games. So if he's playing games, I'm happy. And you're pulling it up here?
Well, it's not quite the bike helmet and shades, but I guess they give out a train conductor hat for a good performance for Unlun Karpat.
Choo-choo. he's leading the charge there. And Ross, I got good news for you for sticking overseas with prospects.
Yes.
Your guy, Philip
The mythical
Norberg,
creature.
scored his first of the season on Saturday. This is all courtesy of Sens Prospects, like we've already showed you. A power play goal and a 4-2 loss. And Norberg, 4 points in 6 games. Ross, that is very good, but I'll just quickly throw in a reminder that Thomas Amara had 6 points in 4 games.
Preseason games, excuse you.
That's going to be a fun one. You can only do as good as the games you're in, Ross. What do you want Amara to do there?
Yeah.
But it is pretty impressive that Norberg is popping off here, and he's in the Allsvenskan League, so a good
Not that one.
League.
Not that. He went up, but came back down. That
one he wasn't?
Oh, okay. No, you can't keep up with him. It's crazy.
Classic European prospect developing hockey, so that's my bad there. But
just like Oscar Pettersson. Just like Oscar Pettersson, who was called up to the SHL and then sat on the bench the entire game.
Yeah,
didn't play a shift.
Sens Prospect made a good note. It's annoying that they count that as a game played for them. So like that it looks like they played 0 minutes and just sat on the bench, which isn't obviously not true. So that's one thing we're going to have to stay woke on with those stats. We need Sens fans in Finland and Sweden. We need some clarification on how things are going over there.
Well, hey, Alex,
we need boots on the ground here.
Alex Lindskog is going to be boots on the ground for Philip Norberg's next game.
Okay, boom. Ask and you shall receive. Awesome.
Yes. Alex, if you're listening to this, DM us. We want to get you on the show right after you see that. We need a boots on the ground in Sweden for prospects. We need that. Alex, hit us up on that. Speaking of friends of the show, I'm surprised Angus Crookshank isn't playing tonight.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't really thought of that. Maybe it's just a case of, hey, we've seen a couple showings of him. He's looked good. We want to get a look at other guys. I don't know. Yeah,
he definitely hasn't. He's not in the lineup because he's done something bad.
Yeah,
it's not a poor performance review, right?
No, not at all. No, there's no way. Yeah, so
I'll be excited to see Tyler Boucher get some more action, though. This is my locked-on player tonight. I'm going to be watching him extremely closely, and I know it's not a part of the battles. I'll be keeping my eye down the middle as well, but in terms of an individual who I want to see exceed, it's Tyler Boucher. It's going to be my first live viewing outside of the OHL.
Yeah.
So excited for that. We got to see him actually together in that game against North Bay, where they lost twice to be eliminated in the game. The goal was called back, and then they scored a minute later. But excited to see Tyler get his second preseason game. I thought he fared pretty decent in the first one.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I think shift by shift you can really feel his energy and what he brings on the ice, because all it takes is for him to throw one hit, and it feels like that just kind of ignites the line he's on, and they pick up the pace a little bit more. So he's a guy that's Sens fans. I don't care what you think about the draft position. Cheer for him now because he's a fun player to watch.
100%. Who's your locked-on player tonight?
We mentioned it just briefly there, Ross, so I'll kind of amplify it a little bit more, but I'm going to be taking a good look at Lassie Thompson.
Nice.
Because although he's not on that top pair with Brandstrom, like we mentioned, his most common partner is Dylan Hetherington, so that's who he's with here today. And I still am of the belief that Lassie is closer to knocking on the door to getting a spot in the NHL roster this season than JBD is, so let's see what he can do. Let's see. He's probably going to get top power play time. Well, no, maybe Brandy, but he's going to get power play time, I'm sure. Probably on the second unit, I guess. So I want to see him bring out that Tom bomb. Let's see. That's why I would put him a little bit ahead of JBD, because he's not just a steady, smart, defensive defenseman. He's got good defense while also having a great attribute on offense with that big slap shot from the point. So let's see that tonight. Tonight.
Yes, I'm very excited, and I'm hopeful that it can even come close to the fantastic game you and I got to see. That was our first game since COVID, when we went to the preseason game here last year. Ridley Gregg goes between his legs, backhand upstairs, over the shoulder of Eric Comrie. Then he elbows Pierre-Luc Dubois in the face, gets a game suspension. Shane Pinto scores in overtime after circling the zone. I saw our friend Pinto Beans put that out. You can't even say it without smiling. But yeah, she put that out on her Twitter, so you can go watch the highlight of that. And then they did a shootout just for fun, and the Sens won that too.
Yeah, why not? Of course, yeah.
Clean day at the office. Hey, lastly, before we go, EP Rinkside is doing their countdown right now of organizational prospect rankings, like how the whole organization goes.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. They're at 15 right now, and the Senators are still not featured.
Yeah, and Ross, I was extra shocked, and this is totally unrelated to the Sens, but it kind of gave me an confusion of how they're doing this, because the LA Kings were 19th, right behind the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm not the biggest prospect guy, but we know a thing or two about prospects, covering the draft pretty closely here. I would have put LA at least in the top 10. Like, that is a stacked prospect pool. And they had some of their top guys were ranked very low. So interesting how they're doing things a little bit differently than I thought. Because like the Leafs prospect pool and LA's, in my mind, are miles apart.
Very, very different. So looking forward to that. I feel a little bit better about what the Sens did with trading back for Ben Roger, because they have Francisco Pinelli as the 9th best prospect for the LA Kings.
I was shocked.
Yeah. Very interesting. And they had the Rangers too. They're always been known as having good prospects, although now a lot of them have graduated. Same with Ottawa, though. That's why I'm surprised, especially, in the public sphere, the Senators drafting hasn't always been something that's in lockstep with the public scouts and their analysis. So I'm a little surprised. That's something that we're going to keep our eye on, as it should be any day now, as they just announced the 15th and 16th ranked teams.
So what's your prediction then for where the Sens will land?
I've been saying next for like the last 5 for these guys' opinion, because they did a top 100 prospects. Yeah, Jake Sanderson was at number 4, but nobody else was in the top 100. Not even Shane Pinto. I was shocked at that. And maybe, like, they say Calder eligibility is how they're doing it. So Shane Pinto should be there, but I didn't see him in the top 100 prospects they had. So, I don't know.
I think the public view of Pinto is very skewed because of the lack of NHL games they've been able to see, right? And then there's not even, in that span, he's been hurt. There's no college, junior, or AHL games to take a look at and kind of judge him up against his peers either. So I think that's a big reason why Shane Pinto's not really up there so high. I'm going to say I think the Sens finished 11, just because that's a nice number for the Sens.
Oh, and sorry, I lied. They had Ridley Gregg at 93. I'm just kind of scrolling through it real quick. So if they had Ridley Gregg at 93, they have to have Shane Pinto as ahead of Ridley Gregg. I won't stand for anything but, as I continue to kind of scroll here and try to figure it out on the fly. Some of the names are absolutely wild that are up here. Like, there's no way Jagger Furcus is a better prospect than Shane Pinto. Like, am I taking crazy pills? Am I taking am I a bit of a homer here? Like, what's going on?
We did like Jagger Furcus, but is he better than Shane Pinto? I mean, if we're asking, would I do a 1-for-1 trade? The answer is obviously no.
No, but there's other guys on. Kevin Korchinski. They've got at 49, Pilsy. Oh boy.
I mean, hey, nice prospect, but not our
Shane
guy.
Pinto.
Let's just say that.
26. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
Very fair.
There we go. So we'll take back a bit of that mad at lists anger there.
I was ready to be very mad at lists there. Let's take you a step further. Mitch Brown's been on the show before, so we'll wrap up. You know what? Just to give them a little credit, and they are worth the subscription. I believe it's
Exactly.
$10 a month. You and I split it, and it works out very well because you get the game logs for each guy. Like, there's a lot of great stuff that Elite
The draft
Prospects
guide is
has.
second to none. Like, whatever you think of EP's scouting and what they hold valuable and how they rank guys, there's no better draft coverage than the draft guide they put out. It's incredible.
Here's us giving you a sneak peek of the content you get. Quote, Shane Pinto wouldn't have been eligible for this list if it weren't for an early season injury. 1 year later, he's a legitimate dark horse contender for the Calder, provided he can play his way back into a second line center role. There's no denying he has the ability. A sharp mind allows him to weave his on and off puck skills, popping into space at the perfect time for a deflection or turning a chance into a tap in with a deft, in tight pass. A heavy shot should make him a threat to score from outside the slot too, and his physicality and inside focus game blend with his passing skill. While his NHL game will always be driven by those skills, his growth as a puck handler and skater over the years suggests those won't be his only skills. I think they pretty much knocked that out of the park as a scouting report on Shane Pinto.
Yeah, definitely. Other than maybe I missed it, I might have zoned out there. But did they mention the face-off attributes? I mean, sure, in the NHL is still lacking, but that was, I would
Nasty.
say, his biggest attribute through college. Like, no one was putting up face-off numbers like Pinto. So that would be my one thing. Is it's hard to talk about Pinto without, even if you're contrasting how good he was in college versus how he struggled in the NHL. I feel like that's kind of the pivotal point for the centerman.
Okay, so what's your official prediction where they end up on the overall organization ranking?
I got him at 11. I think that's
11. You said that.
Yeah.
Praise Alfie. I'll say 13.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Let us know your thoughts on whether I should rock the black business casual Shane Pinto North Dakota jersey or an Ottawa Senators jersey for tonight's game. And you can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central. You can follow Pilsy at Brandon Piller 1. I'm at Ross Levitan. Please subscribe to the Locked On Senators YouTube channel. The growth has been overwhelming. We appreciate it. We can't tell you enough. We read all the comments. So if you ever have a question or something that you want answered on the show, we're going to go through those in the next few days. We'll put a mailbag together. We'll get that to you. We are your home coverage for the Ottawa Senators, Pilsy. And that's not even including the Atlantic Division crossovers that are coming soon on a weekend near you.
And Ross, our collab with the Locked On Fantasy Hockey guys. Fantasy hockey drafts are coming up quicker than you probably realize. So you got to get your tips, your sleepers, your avoids, all those kind of things. So that's just another piece of content we're going to be putting out for you guys.
All right, be a friend, tell a friend. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.